Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
So whether you're riding down the road right now, you're sitting listening somewhere to this podcast, or walking down the road trying to get some exercise or in a gym, I don't know where you are, but you're listening, and this podcast is for you, this particular episode. I want you to know that heaven knows your name. Heaven knows your name. You say, well, I'm nobody. You know, I volunteer over here, or I'm a youth pastor here, but, you know, nobody knows me except for the few people in our church and all this. And it seems like I have a lot of friends that are famous, or a lot of people know them, or they're in demand. And, you know, who am I? What am I doing? And I want you to know that God's got significance wrapped around you. And not only that, but He knows you. He knows you by name. He's known you since you were, and really before you were even in your mother's womb. It says in Psalm 139 that He saw you being knit inside of her womb, and that every day of your life was written down before one day had even taken place. So He knows your name. Heaven celebrates those who bring people to Jesus. And if you're doing that in full-time student ministry or any sort of ministry, or as a volunteer, or just that's what you do in life, you share Jesus with people. You're offering them eternal life. You're offering them hope when other people aren't offering them hope. In a hopeless world, to some people, to many people, this world seems hopeless. This life seems hopeless. And I want you to know that heaven takes note. Heaven takes note when you care about the widow and the orphan, when you care about the young teenager and their family. It's not one of my favorite things to hear churches say, well, you know, teenagers don't pay the bills. What a stupid statement. I've said it before. I can't say stupid enough, because that's stupid. It's really crazy. Yes, I know that's a harsh word, but they're connected to parents and to grandparents, and they do bring in the money, because we will pay whatever it takes to help our children be happy in God and be committed to the Lord and be committed in life to a place to where they feel purposeful and don't feel left out. It's amazing what we'll pay in sports and in education and all kinds of other things. And we say in the church, they don't pay the bills. No, but their parents do, and their grandparents do, and their friends do, and their uncles and aunts do. But you are not alone. So give your best to your family, and give your best to your ministry, whether it's a volunteer ministry or whether it's a full-time ministry. Heaven knows your name, and so does your family and friends. Give your best to both worlds, because God is there to help you succeed in your family and ministry. So with this in perspective, when you are in a tough place with your church, your board members, your parents, students, or senior pastors, there is one thing, or maybe you are one of those other people. There is one thing that you must keep in perspective. Who do you work for? When you keep who do you work for in perspective, you start coming up with a different sort of confidence in yourself, because you know yourself is backed by the God of the universe, and you work for Him. You don't work for the church. You don't work for the pastor. You don't stay even for the students. I had Mark Zier, who was a Youth for Christ guy who was in Fort Lauderdale area, and he mentored me in photography and things like that, because Youth for Christ at that time said, hey, listen, we'll give you all the equipment if you will go down with Mark and let him teach you some stuff, and we'll buy the equipment that he tells you to get. And after you've worked it for 2 years, then the equipment's yours. And sure enough, a few years later, it may have been 4 or 5 years later, I I moved to another church and stayed there for 29 years. When I thought I was going to stay with Youth for Christ, God moved me into a church, and I used photography as a ministry and a way to reach out. There's many times I wished I had remembered that I don't work for them, that I work for God. My employer is the God of the universe. And that's what you need to think of yourself. Not arrogantly, but confidently. When you're on the road of ministry, He will keep you there if you're on the right road. He will take you to the next place if you're not. And don't worry about if you're in the right place or not in the right place. Just simply say, God, if I'm not in the right place, change my place. There was a time when I was in my quiet time and some people in the church, some parents that I thought were really on my side, I said something they didn't like that I said to their children, and probably I know I could have said things differently. But it was some of these things are always new. Ministry is always changing. Things are new all the time. And they try to get me fired. The very people, and this is a rule of thumb for those of you who are into full-time ministry, the people who meet you at the airport or help bring you to the place physically are probably going to be the people that are going to try to get rid of you about 4 to 5 years later. The honeymoon's over in 5 years. Your ministry starts, though, in about 5 years. And I was in a quiet place, having a quiet time, miserable, going, God, they hate me. I'm so done. I'm emotionally done. My wife and I are ready to just go wherever you want us to go. Please send us somewhere else. And in that quiet time, God reminded me that He knew I was there and He heard me, and I knew He knew my name. And in my spirit, I heard Him say, will you stay? And my body just dropped. And I said, yes, I'll stay. And I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't thrilled. Life was pretty miserable. But God kept moving over those 29 years, as long as He had me there until that 29th year. He said, it's over. It's time to move on now. He would move people that were unmovable, that were unshakable, that were against me out of those ministries and out of my life so that He could carry me on to do the things He had designed for me to do. And God knows your name. Heaven knows your name. And they celebrate you every time someone comes to know Jesus because of you. And you may not even know when they ask Jesus in their heart or not. I had a couple of students, and one in particular, Jason Magison, he is on an episode not too far back. I remember giving students on a ski retreat up in Snowshoe, West Virginia, in a condo where we were doing our devotions that night, and gave them an opportunity to ask Jesus in their heart. And I don't remember if anyone said yes that night or not, but I remember 6 months later, and it was kind of a progression. And one day I said to Jason, things seem different with you. Have you asked Jesus into your heart? And he says, well, yeah, I did that a long time ago. I said, what are you talking about? He said, when you ask us on the ski retreat if we wanted to ask Jesus in our heart, I did that night, and He's changed my life. And I thought, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I just knew that something was different about you. Wherever you are, wherever you go, God is as concerned for you and knows your name, as well as the students and the staffers and the parents and everyone you encounter. And God's showing you His favor because you matter. You count. If you aren't sure that God has brought you to this place in ministry where you are, though, find another place for vocation. That sounds harsh, but don't waste your time where you're not supposed to be. Before I stayed at one place for 6 years and another for 29 years in student ministry, I was seeking out other ministries and then those things where I wanted to be. And God kept opening the doors and shortly closing the doors and opening the doors and closing the doors till he got me where he wanted me. And when he got me where he wanted me, even though it was a struggle many, many times, he would remind me, I know who you are. I know where I put you. This is me. I know it's painful, but you're going to see the rewards if you stay here. And rewards I saw over and over and over again. And remember this, your war is not with those people. Your war is with true enemies called principalities and powers, not flesh and blood. But it always feels like flesh and blood, doesn't it? It always feels like those people. They're struggling as much with you as you are with them many times. But it's the principalities and powers, the spiritual world that's pitting us against each other. When God is about peace, where there is struggle, there's warfare. Where there's warfare, God is in the middle of it, and he's battling for you, and we need to give it over to him because heaven knows your name. And when you ask, God says, I hear you, and I'm going to empower you. Leadership isn't fun. I wish somebody had told me that from the beginning. I thought, well, maybe I can make it fun. Yeah, I'm going to do it over here in music, and I'm going to do this in student ministry, and we're going to have lots of fun. But you know what? I found out it was really hard having fun. People would say, well, all you do is you go out and play with students and stuff. Do you know how hard that is to do the right things that engage them and that make them have fun? You have to plan and plan and plan and meeting after meeting in order to get the things that you can have moments in time so that they can believe and feel good enough to hear God. And having fun is hard work. The more people you lead, the better chances you have for people to be upset or angry with you. Kristen Lascola says this, and the 5 things that she says, I wish somebody had told me before I entered ministry or student ministry, said her senior pastor said, living with low levels of frustration is one of the very biggest struggles in ministry. She said, it's not what you're thinking about. He said, the low levels of frustration are people's frustration with you as a leader. She said, the more people you lead, the more chances you have of someone being angry with you. And once again, it comes back. It's principalities and powers pitting others against you and you against them. But heaven knows your name, and if you will hang in there, if you will stay in there, if you will keep seeking and keep praying for those people around you and loving them, and even asking them, hey, what are some of the things that you see in my leadership abilities that could help you do a better job yourself? Is there something I can change? And you have to be careful about not making it so personal with things that they can attack you with. But Kristen says this, what are those leadership things that I can change to help you? In order to thrive, you must know that you belong to God and that you are a leader in his army. That means authority and power are at your access. The weapons you fight with are not the weapons of this world. They are weapons that tear down strongholds. That means we have weapons at our command to fight. You are known in heaven. God is the ruler and creator of the universe. He knows your name. As you're driving down the road, as you're sitting or working out, I want you to contemplate that today, that God and heaven, the angels and the saints before you know your name, and they're cheering you on. And you are not insignificant, but you are very significant to what is happening in the heavenly realm and on this earth. right now. You matter. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.